Okay, so this is Justin Nybo, and for my problem-solving denture, the first thought that came to my mind was, why not use Play-Doh? Because it can harden, and that was one of the problems. I thought, I want something that's going to be able to come off and that you'll be able to use that will harden and hold the teeth and be able to work for our edentulous patient. So I got my Play-Doh from Dr. Drill and Phil, and we're going to make him our edentulous patient and make him a denture. So we'll begin by taking some Vaseline and putting it on the model so that it'll be easy to pull it off when it hardens. Alright, next we're going to take the Play-Doh, which is red, to kind of match the gums, and we're going to put it on the model. Now, I learned from wearing my selfie denture that I don't want this to be too thick, or else it's going to be really uncomfortable for our edentulous patients, so I'm going to try to make it about 2 millimeters thick. Now we're going to put the teeth in, and I got these teeth from school, and we want them to look good, so we're going to try to match them up with the midline. So looking here, you'd probably see a front tooth about right there. I'll put it in. And the other front tooth. So you want it to be a nice midline, and you don't want them to look like buck teeth either. Anyways, now we'll just let it harden, and tomorrow we'll pull it off.
Sweet.
Alright, so it's been a day, so we're going to take this off now. So let's see how easy it is to get it to come off. Uh-oh. The teeth are all falling out. Well, it came off mostly in one piece.
Almost there.
Let's see if we can kind of stick these back in. See, the thing we'd have to do is probably glue them, but let's see. It's mostly in one piece, though.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty good.
Let's see. There we go.
It's not too bad.
Yeah.
That isn't too bad.
So, the thing that I learned from this experience is just that you have to find the right material so that you can keep the teeth in. And at least this didn't shatter or break, but it kind of has some cracks in it, so I'd probably use something else. But I did learn a lot making this, so it was a good project. So what I recognized when I was wearing my selfie denture was, first of all, that I had really excessive salivation. My mouth wasn't used to having it in there, and it caused me to salivate a lot. Also, I recognized that my speech was really difficult to control, and that I sounded really funny, so that would take some time to get used to. Lastly, I also recognized that while I was wearing my selfie denture, that it was hard to eat with, so I'd have to take it out, and it was really helping me recognize how hard it is to be an edentulous patient and to have empathy for what they were going through. So I'll always remember that experience, and it will help me to be a better dentist. Different prosthetics can cause different effects on the patient. We watched videos in class one day about different patients and the different prosthetics they had. Some had just regular dentures, and they said it was really hard to eat apples or things like that. I really remember this one video we watched in particular about one of the ladies who wasn't able to eat fish that she had caught, and for her, no prosthetic appliance would work. And so you can see that the life of a dentulous patient can be difficult, and they lose a lot of their function, including speech, chewing, and those kind of things. And I can just imagine how tough that would be, and I know that that's why advancements in prosthetics can be so useful to help those people in need. One day in class, we were able to hold a lot of the different prosthetics and see the strength that they had. And I remember the regular denture was somewhat loose, but the ones with the implants were really hard to get off in some cases. They were really tight. You could tell that they would be strong. And I even remember we had the hybrids where they were screwed in, and those ones seemed really secure. So that was really neat to see all the different advancements that there are in prosthodontics. One day in class, we had just learned about the theory of idealism, and to apply that principle, Dr. Durham handed us all out a picture of Heidi Klum without teeth. He had whited out her teeth and said, "Just to show you how difficult this is, I want you to all draw in the teeth where they should go." And there were some pretty hilarious mistakes that happened, and it was really difficult. And I think what it helped us to realize is how important it is that teeth are in the right place for aesthetics, for functions, for the way that the patient feels about themselves. And so that was a really impactful day for me to realize the importance of putting teeth in the right spot. Relating to the theory of idealism, on Halloween, we had all prepared dentures and we had placed the teeth. Some of us did it funny, some of us tried to make them look good to go put on these live patients. Well, when we walked in and put them in, a lot of them were really funny looking, and they really made the patient look so much different. And it showed how the position of the teeth can really affect the way people look and the way you perceive them. And so the theory of idealism was really solidified to me that day, that it's important to put them in the right place, and that the patient will notice in their speech and in the way that they feel about themselves and we have that kind of a control when we're making dentures.
Which means, what does it mean? Ain't she sweet? Bees would not be buzzing around her if she was.
I just finished reading the Dogma article as well as the Wiscott article about why teeth are put in the place that they are, and also the dogmas that may be holding us back from treatment that's proper for our patients. And what's interesting about the dogmas is that they're things that have been taught in dental school for years that may not have any significant evidence that they're effective. So from that article, I remember reading about a face bow not being needed in the fabrication of dentures. And this is something interesting because people have thought about that. And also about the simplified technique versus the academic technique. There's a lot of evidence showing that patients aren't able to tell the difference. And therefore, sometimes it's best to just do what's quickest so that you can be a productive clinician. Also, in the Wiscott article, it talked about the position of the teeth and how they are confined by the lips and the tongue to be in the right position, and also they erupt and will find the opposing tooth. However, there was really interesting thing talking about how there only needs to be one contact point in order for there to be good occlusion. And this is going against a lot of what you'd usually think. And so in the fabrication of dentures, we can follow these And in the future, we need to look for more evidence-based of what is going to ultimately be the best for the patient and for the clinician. I'm now going to walk you through the steps of denture making, and during this process I'm going to show you pictures of the live patient experience as well as dentures I made on a mannequin. But the important thing is we need to know why we're doing each step. So I'll walk you through it. First of all, we're going to take an alginate impression, and this is just to serve as a rough model of the patient's mouth. It doesn't need to be super accurate because we're going to use this to pour up stone to make a model of the patient's mouth that we can build a wax rim on, or a Wayne Newton rim. And so the important thing is that we just get a pretty decent impression that we can pour the stone in. So the second step would be to pour the stone to make a model of the patient's mouth that we're going to work on. Then once the stone is hardened, we will form triad around the stone to make a better custom tray or the base of a Wayne Newton rim that we can then go and we'll add wax on the triad and go try it in the patient's mouth just to make sure that it's generally correct. Then we're going to use that to take the PVS impression. So we would go onto the palatal surface and we'd put the PVS impression material and get a really good P90X impression that's going to stay really good. This is the step where it's critical to make sure that it fits ideally. Then what we're going to do is put it in the patient's mouth and mark all the dress to the nines that we learned about in class. So this includes the buccolingual position of maxillary central incisors. So that's where how far forward or backward they're going to be, and that's really important. Also, we're going to determine incisal length, which will be at repose. We're going to look to see how far down we want the incisors to come. Next, we're going to look at the maxillary occlusal plane angle, and this is going to be using Camper's plane, where we want to make sure that it's completely horizontal so that we have a good occlusal plane. And then we'll look at the buccal corridor to see, because we want a little space at the buccal corridor so it doesn't look like they have a mouthful of teeth. Next, you're going to mark the midline so that you can make sure that they have an aesthetic smile and that it's centered. And you're also going to mark the midline angle so that you make sure that you have the right angle for the incisors and that they're not tilted either way. Next, you'll mark the zenith line so that you can get the proper height and shape of the teeth. So you want to make sure that they're not too big, not too small, and that they form well around the lips. Next, you'll mark the buccal and lingual positions of the mandibular central incisors and the incisal length of the mandibular incisors, and that should give you a good position for the teeth. So once you've marked all of those, you're going to take a bite registration and so that you can get the occlusion right, and then you're going to send it off to the lab and they'll set the teeth. Then they'll send it back to you, and then you will do the initial try-in where you will only test speech and aesthetics but not bite down because they're only set in wax and it could mess up the teeth. Then once the patient's happy, you'll send it back to the lab for them to finish it and send it in the acrylic. Then you'll get back the final dentures and you'll set them in, adjust occlusion, and fix any sore spots, and then you've got a final denture. What many denture patients don't realize is that as time goes on, their bones will resorb that will affect the fit of their denture. So I'm now going to use my hands. This will be the maxilla and this will be the mandible to kind of show the process of bone resorption in a dentulous patient. So you'll start in a class 1 occlusion when they initially have their teeth removed. And what will happen is over time the mandible will actually resorb 4 times faster than the maxilla, and so you'll end up in this class 2 occlusion where the bottom teeth are way behind the maxilla teeth. And as time goes on, the maxilla will actually catch up to the mandible, and the mandible can resorb to the point where it's down to the chin, which will cause it to be really wide, as well as, it will come in front of the maxilla. So you can get this crossbite where the mandibular teeth are now on the outside, as well as a class 3 occlusion. And that's in a really late edentulous patient. but it really affects the way that you make the dentures and the fit of the dentures. And so I think many edentulous patients don't realize that over time they're going to need to get them replaced because they won't fit as well and the occlusion is going to be changed.
She's got dimple cheeks, and that's my weakness now. Oh, me.
One day in class, we learned about all the different possibilities that there are for denture patients and how the clinician needs to use their best judgment in order to come up with the best treatment plan for the patient. For example, sometimes there's a denture that's fit great, but as the bone resorbs, you're going to need to reline it so that it fits better. Or there's some patients where they can't be without their teeth, and so therefore, as soon as they get their teeth extracted, they need immediate dentures, and those are a possibility. As well as they have these interim dentures called flippers, which can serve as a temporary denture until they get their real denture. We also learned about implants and how you could, based on how much bone they have and how much control they want, that they can have implants put on. And so, it's between the patient and the clinician to come up with the best treatment plan and make that decision based on the best clinical judgment and then move forward with that treatment plan. So that's the importance and the critical part that a clinician plays in the lives of edentulous patients. Lastly, I want to discuss about repairs of dentures. So in class, we did a repair of the abutment for the implants, and we took out the housing and put in a new housing. And here are some pictures showing what we did so that you can see that the denture repair process includes things like fixing the abutments for the implants. Here are some thoughts that I have after watching the TED Talk about prosthetic limbs, is that in the dental world, everybody's jaw is so different and so unique. So here is an idea that I have that could maybe advance prostheses for the mouth. And that would be that we could find a way to simulate the movement of the patient's mouth. Something that could hook up to a computer that would simulate so you could see the movement, so we could know exactly what the best balance for that person would be, and then be able to use maybe like a CEREC machine that makes crowns or something that would be able to produce a perfectly fitting denture that could go on implants or something, but that would simulate their mouth individually. And in patients that aren't able to have prosthetics, we need to find a way that they can have them. So my idea, it would be integrating with a computer to make these prosthetics that are unique to that individual person. And that would maybe even be more accurate than an impression. So eventually maybe that could be the way things would go. I'd love to see the changes that will happen in prosthetics during my lifetime. Overall, this has been a really awesome class and I've learned a lot, so thank you.